Welcome to your first lesson in Kandaryu. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a story behind what is Kandaryu, and I'll also dive into a little bit of the history of martial arts in general. I got the name Kanda from Iru Kanda, which is a vine that grows native to Okinawa and can also be found growing in the mainland of Japan. Now, I chose this name because the vine starts off at a root and the vine continues to grow and spread. And just like that, martial arts started through China, came through Okinawa through their trade that they had before their Japanese occupation. And then once the Japanese started coming around, that's when the influences of the Japanese started to mix. That's when systemization and standardization came in, as well as some not so good things. And then eventually globalization as a whole after World War II, and then martial arts began to spread around the world. So with that being said, this style, it comes from my deep passion and love that I have for martial arts and its history. One thing to keep in mind is that the history of martial arts is actually very young. It's younger than the history that we have of America itself. We're talking about the first masters that we call the fathers of karate, like Soka Masumura. We're talking about the mid-19th century. But look how in such a short time, over a period of 2 or 3 generations, martial arts has taken the world by storm. We've already seen it grow and evolve and become more effective, and everybody now talks about it, wants to train in it, and there's so many styles. And so, Kandaryu is supposed to honor that tradition. It's supposed to honor those roots in the Okinawa karate all the way through to what we have today. And so I myself, I'm a Shodan first degree black belt in Okinawan Shorin-ryu karate, and I did it out of a love for kata, because kata is almost like written history, but history that you get to live yourself. You get to train as these people trained before there was media, before we even knew about what martial arts was. Because I wanted to find the raw part of what martial arts was. Once the Japanese came around, they wanted to standardize things, and that's when you get, even from judo, that's when you get our gis and our belts from. But karate used to be just pure, bare bones, primal. We're talking about hitting and kicking trees, and I'm not even joking about that. And we're talking about a pure focus on kata. And so Kandaryu really is just the summary of my love and passion for martial arts. It's not just a passion for karate, but it's also just a passion for its history. And again, now you get to live that history and learn it and live it yourself. And that's what I love about it, is that we get to train and think like these people trained and thought before the advent of UFC and before MMA and movies and all these things. That being said, throughout this course, you will learn a total of 18 kata. You have 10 that come from Shorin-ryu, and these are just a bedrock. And again, this is so important. So the next kata you're about to learn, Neihashi Shodan, we're talking about, it is so crucially important, because it is these kata. This is how people learn true karate do. And I'm talking, this is it. It was this, along with a lot of philosophical lessons. There were no gis, there were no belts, along with physical body conditioning. And it was very privatized and very small. And I'll try my best not to rant, but again, this is pure karate. Then, after that, you're going to learn the evolution. So you're going to learn some Shotokan forms. And from that, not only will you get to learn traditional Shotokan karate, but you'll get to learn where it came from. Because you have to keep in mind, all these roots in martial arts came from something, right? It's almost like religion. Like, it starts off as something, and then over time, people pick what they like and don't like, and they start their own branches of things. And that's exactly the perfect analogy for martial arts. So you have Funakoshi, the father of Shotokan karate. What did he train in? He trained in Shorin-ryu. And you can ask yourself a lot of these questions about a lot of the masters of martial arts that we have today, a lot of the fathers of martial arts and different styles we have. It all comes from, what did they train in? What do they like and not like? And what did they want to change from that? And so you can see, and this is something I didn't even realize until I started training in Shotokan, but then you start to see, and you start to realize and learn that for instance, the 5 basic katas of Shotokan, which you will learn, Heian katas, are just the Pinan katas from Shorin-ryu. Why? Because that is what Funakoshi trained in. And so I like to call it Shotokanized. And so from there, Funakoshi Shotokanized these traditional Okinawan kata. And I think it's extremely important. I'm glad you come along for this journey to still realize the history and pure form of karate and to appreciate it and to learn why it's evolved past a certain point. And I think it's important, extremely important, we don't forget where we came from. Again, we're going to start from the top of the vine, which is where we are today, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom. Again, true karate do, and that's what started my whole journey into this, and I'm glad you could be a part of it. So again, just a brief overview, you're going to learn 10 Shorin Ryu kata, because from there, you get to learn the Shotokanized version. So you're going to learn Neihanshi Shodan, you're going to learn the 3 Neihanshi kata, you're going to learn 5 Kinan katas, and from there, you're going to literally live and train that evolution yourself. You're going to realize the differences between the two when we go into Shotokan. So Neihanshi kata, Neihanshi Shodan turn into Tenki Shodan. You will learn that. The 5 Kinan katas, then Funakoshi took those, along with Anko Itatsu. The history is always a little bit blurry. They turned into the Heian kata, so the 5 Heian katas. And then you're going to learn Pasai Sho, Pasai Dai towards the end. Again, the original root, you're going to see Basai Dai and how that's different, and it's very cool how to analyze it and see how these people thought, what these people were thinking when they created these kata for their system. And at the very end, you're going to learn 1 Yoshikai kata, which is where we're at right now. In my school, we teach Yoshikai karate and we teach American karate, which is a mixture of all kinds of different styles. We're going to learn 1 Yoshikai kata called Gekusai, and that one's very simple, and yet similar enough to everything that you've learned that it won't be hard to add on to your own. I'm glad you came along for this journey. This is what I'm absolutely most passionate about. So it's going to be filled with history, filled with facts, filled with names, and a lot of details and breaking things down. So let's jump right into your first lesson, Neihanshi Shodan. Now, to test for your first belt in Kandaryu, you're going to learn Neihanshi Shodan. This is an extremely important kata, and I cannot stress that enough. When you look into the history of martial arts, this is the kata that what we call now Okinawan master, Okinawan father of karate learned. This is what they trained in, and you're living it right now. It's so exciting, and it's so important. Even for my black belt test for Shorin Ryu, I had to do this kata as one of the very first ones I learned. This is so important, in fact, I'm going to include some history behind it. But before I get into it, I just wanted to say, for this belt, you will learn Neihanshi Shodan, and then every belt rank, you're going to learn an additional kata. Again, 18 ranks, 18 kata, but they're all extremely important. And luckily, a lot of them are very simple. When we go on to the Shotokan kata, they're going to be, against their evolutions, extremely similar, if not identical, just maybe a different stance or maybe 1 or 2 different techniques. And so it'll be very easy to learn. So you're not going to be overwhelmed. Don't feel like it's going to be impossible. It's actually going to be pretty easy. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, again, the focus of this whole course, the whole focus of this system and the style is the focus on kata. So everything else that comes with karate, like when you think one-step techniques, tagi jutsus, when you think of kumite, when you think of combinations, when you think of even techniques, like one-on-one techniques, like kicking and punching and blocks and all these things, all of that will come, but it'll be more focused when we get into the Shotokan kata, because again, at that point, it'll be easy to learn the kata, and I can add these things to it. But for right now, we're going to be very focused on just the kata itself and keep everything else light, because again, this is what it's all about, living the kata, living the history. So let's go into the history of Neihanshi Shodan itself. Neihanshi Shodan is extremely important kata, not just because it's what early practitioners, I'm talking about the roots of karate, I'm talking about the very first practitioners. It's not just what they learned and what they practiced, but it's also what they emphasize and what they really push onto their students. Now, the history of Neihanshi Shodan is said to come from the father of Karate Do itself, Sokan Matsumura. And from there, we believe that the story goes that he learned it from a sailor, a Chinese sailor, that crashed onto the island of Okinawa, and usually any foreigners would immediately have to be taken to jail. But Matsumura, again, karate was very philosophical back then, all about behavior and character. And so with that being said, he had mercy on the sailor, and they actually taught him Neihachi Shodan. Our first story of Neihachi Shodan comes from a figure called Choki Motobu, who taught each student one kata, guess what it was, Neihachi Shodan, for 7 years. This story comes from another father of karate named Chibana Chosen. And my instructor even got to see his memorial, because he trained at Okinawa for 10 years. Got to see his memorial, got to train in his dojo. So he got trained by not only the student of Chibana, but his student as well. So we're talking about a direct tie back into the history of karate. And again, just to show how young the history of karate really is. But the story goes of Chibana Chosen is that one of his students came into the dojo one day and had to help his teacher because he was frozen in place doing his Neihachi kata. He was doing it so intensely that he could not move because his legs were frozen. And it was said that he was doing the Neihachi kata. And there are many photos of the great masters of karate doing Neihachi. Luckily, there's only one stance for Neihachi Shodan, and Idan and Sandai. It's our attention stance right here, traditionally with our toes pointed side by side. Some styles you'll see our toes pointed forward. But we'll do side by side. We're going to bow, which is Nire, and then we come into Yoi, our ready position, into our Pinan stance. So we're gonna have our hands come up, left hand underneath the right, toes pointed inward, again very common in many styles of karate. We're going to come here, bringing them down, with our toes pointed in, and our left hand over our right, and our palms come from here, facing up. As we step out with our left foot, hands together, palms facing down, left on top. This is our Pinan stance right here. Toes are pointed in, but for our kata it's going to be a little bit wider. And I need you to do this is very important. It's called a ready stance. So we need to be getting ourselves ready physically and mentally, and again remind ourselves where the energy of our kata come from in all of our techniques. It is in fact why we wear a belt in karate do. Our energy comes from what's called the tanden in Japanese, and you can find it 2 inches underneath the belly button and then 2 inches deep. This is where the concept of chi comes in if you're looking to another style like Tai Chi and other Chinese martial arts. Where we come up and step out here. Now, as we breathe in and out, clearing our mind, we're also getting ourselves ready for battle. So kata in Japanese means mock combat. So you have to imagine that we have attackers surrounding us. We go through these prearranged set of movements, motions, and techniques, not just to have us learn them, but also how to transition our stance and how to defend ourselves. So as we breathe out, we're actually going to tense our core. We're going to roll up our hips. You can see my belt now is now going to try and point up towards the ceiling to really engage my core. There's a few other things we're going to do. We're going to crunch in with our toes as if we're standing on a beach and we're trying to crunch in the sand underneath our toes. We're going to pull in with our whole leg, not just our knees, with our whole leg. Really, with the web of the feet. We're going to feel like we're pulling in. There's a beach ball right here, and we're squeezing that beach ball as hard as we can. This is Yoi, ready position. Again, to remind ourselves here, where our power and energy comes from. From here, we need to bring our hands into hitike, which means bringing our fist back to our waist. Let's talk about how to make a fist. The easiest way to think about it is you're going to do a thumbs up in the air, and now you're going to lock it down in front of your fingers here. The best way to throw a punch is you point with your number 1 fingers towards your target, and you bring it back in, locking it down with the thumb. This will help ensure that you're always going to punch with those first 2 knuckles right here. We're going to bring them to our side, to our waist, palms facing up. Now, anytime we do this technique, hitike, where we come here to what's called kamai, notice how everything comes to the hips, because it should be my hips and my hands driving out, adding power to the technique. For our belt examination, You're going to learn 2 blocks, you're going to learn 2 strikes. I'm going to ask you to do 10 total, 5 on each side. And I'm going to ask that you say the Japanese numberings 1 through 10 as you do the techniques. But first I will explain how to do them. From here, again, being nice and tense, we're going to come here to Hitike. The first one that we're going to go through is called, our first block that we're going to learn is called Gedan Barai. So Gedan means low, and Barai means to sweep. We have different levels in karateka. We have Jodan, Chudan, Gedan. This is so that you know what level or where we're going to perform our technique. Now, to perform Gedan Barai, we always start with left first. We're going to bring it across the body here like a seatbelt. Our left hand to the opposite cheek, right in front of my right cheek. I'm going to start our movement down from the thumb, going across my center line, and at the last moment, as I cross my center line, I'm going to twist it down, so that way my palm is facing towards my knee or my leg. So again, chamber, Gedan Barai. My arm is not fully locked out, just slight bend in the arm. And when I go to do the other side, I do the exact same thing, but now on my right. Bring my right to my left cheek, leading down with the thumb. At the last possible second, I strike. Slight bend in the arm. Notice when I did these blocks, that my opposite hand always coming to Hitike. So I come here, as a chamber, low block. This is called cover and chamber. Cover, this is called chamber, this is called cover. So again, if I throw a low block, I would now chamber and cover, leading down, low block. Chamber, cover, leading down, low block. I'm going to try and synchronize these 2 together, so that's what you should practice. When I finish throwing one technique, other one comes back to the belt. Think about it as getting ready for the next strike. Come across, cover and chamber, low block. We're gonna do that 10 times. I'll start in my attention stance. I'll come out to Yoi. Ski, which means bring your fist to the side, into Hitike. Now from here, starting my left first, I will go Ich, Ni, San, Shi, Go, Roku, Sich, Hach, Q, Ju. The next block we're going to learn is called Uchi. To do our Uchi, we're going to come across here, starting my left hand, come across like a seatbelt, and from here, I'm going to drive forward with my thumb, and at the last second, snap my fist out, palm facing out. So again, I'm going to drive with my thumb across the center line. As I cross the center line, whip, turn my hand around, palm facing out. And that is anytime we do a technique in karate, we always want to wait till the last possible moment to twist and snap. And you'll see this especially with our back fist. The reason being is that we want to stay nice and relaxed, and that twisting motion is what adds the snap and therefore power into our technique. Left fist on top for the technique I'm about to do. Right on bottom, this is called kamai, or come out. Some leads, each. And now, as I bring my fist back to Hitike, I'll start the chamber for the next technique. And I'll come out, san. And I repeat all the way up through 10. Now let's go through our striking techniques. We have our back fist, and we have our punch. So we have Oi-zuki, or Chokuzuki, and then we have our back fist, which is called Uraken. To do my punches is very simple. Hands are in Hitike. I will start with my left first. So I'll simply come out, leading, palm up, and just before I strike, I'll rotate my fist over. And I actually have a little bit of what's called ulnar deviation, which means I'm going to tilt my wrist towards my ulna bone, so that I can really lead and drive with that first knuckle here. The target for my punches are right to the center line, straight to the solar plexus. Underneath the solar plexus is the diaphragm. If we shock the diaphragm, what helps us breathe, expand our rib cage, it's going to send a shock, and we're going to have our opponent gasping for air. The cool part about the solar plexus is that it has to remain soft to allow for inspiration and exhalation of the rib cage, expansion and contraction. And so therefore, no matter how much someone trains their core, rectus abdominis, and all this stuff, it will always have to remain soft, so it's a good target for self-defense. Now, of course, our punch can be at any level, but for the sake of mini kata that we're doing, and for drilling, we're gonna go straight to the center line. So again, I'm going to lead out with my palm up, and strike, rotate at the last moment. I'm gonna tighten my fist upon impact, twist it right before impact, and tighten that impact, and then immediately relax my hand. All of that's gonna add speed and power. You're going to have speed when you're nice and relaxed, and you're gonna have power when you're tense and strong, and have that whip at the end. I'm gonna try and time my strike by pulling my fist back into hitike. Now, if we go into a little bit of bunkai, just briefly, to help you appreciate what we're doing here, I'm gonna give you two little bits of insight. Number one, yes, we're striking the opponent, but what's the point of hitike? It has two different points. Number one being, as I shoot my punch out, let's say I come back and I grab the opponent's wrist. I can now pull them, or their arm, or their sleeve, their shoulder, I can now pull them, meeting force with force, into the next technique. Now, I also have control of their arm, or whatever else I may have grabbed. I have control of them here, and from here we can go into an arm bar, or whatever else is needed. A second purpose of hitike, I have some guy behind me, let's say someone's trying to choke me, and yet I have a guy coming in, I can punch this guy, right? And then I can elbow the guy behind me, here. And so, those are just some small ways of what we're doing here. And again, for your belt test, we're gonna do 10 counting out loud, just like with everything else. We're gonna go each, ni, san, all the way through 10. And if you need help on anything that we're talking about, or to help pass the quiz as well, there's a spreadsheet that you're going to have, a document where you can find everything we're talking about. And that includes counting 1 through 10. Let's go through our last technique, Uraken. So again, we're gonna step out into our ready position. From here, Uraken is a back fist, because we're hitting with the back of the fist. However, it's not gonna be the meat part, it's going to be right here with my number 1 and number 2 knuckles. Every single strike I do will always be leading with these 2 knuckles here. And so, to do a back fist, we're going to be here with my arm parallel to the ground, and I'm actually going to bring my fist in just ever so slightly, leading with the elbow, almost like I'm going to do a sneeze right here. Leading with the elbow, and now instead, with my thumb pointed down, I'm going to lead with my pinky. And at the last second, as you already know, we're going to twist and snap. So notice the angle at which I have my Uraken is pointed. It's have a little bit of an angle here. Again, it's to make sure I make contact with this number 1 knuckle. If I come here, I might hit with my number 2, I might hit with something else in case I miss. But if I add that little bit of an angle, it really helps make sure that these 2 knuckles are going to make contact first. And so again, I'm going to do the same thing with my left hand. Notice how I'm twisting my hips with it. I'm going to bring my fist in ever so slightly, leading with my pinky. I'm going to snap everything at the last minute, here. And now I'm going to come here, have my fist in. I even tilt it a little bit downward just to have a little bit more twisting power. And this is all about speed.